Welcome, I'm Cynthia. In this class, let's grab our blanket, if you have a blanket or a towel, and just roll it up so that you have this little rolled up setup on your mat. And what I'd like you to do is sit on that setup so that the roll kind of settles right between your two sitting bones. And if this is a little bit uncomfortable, instead you can take a block to sit on. I'd love for us to use a block a little bit later. So you can use that instead to sit on. But if you feel brave enough, if you feel open enough, then do sit yourself right on that roll so you've got this little dome between your two sitting bones. And you can rock your weight slightly forward so that you're not leaning into your tailbone, but you're more balanced between the back and the front of the body. And notice that your legs might want to try to hold you up here. And can you soften your thigh bones? Can you soften your legs toward the earth? And bring your hands onto your legs. Close your eyes. Begin to turn your attention into your body and into your practice. We can wander through so many themes in our yoga practices, in our investigations. But I have to say, the founding kind of bedrock principles of yoga are so worthy that I come back to them time and again. And the very first of these, the very first principle of our practice is something called Ahimsa, which means non-harming, non-violence, abstaining from hurting yourself. And in our practice, we do this in a couple of ways. We do this by listening to the body, beginning to pay attention so that we know where we're gripping and how that gripping impacts us on the physical level and even deeper. And we also cultivate this by creating compassion for ourselves, which is very different from trying to change ourselves or be better. It's not that at all. Scan yourself wherever you are, all of it. Maybe you're still tired, maybe you have an ache or pain, maybe you feel great. Maybe you have an agitation or an irritation or an anxiety. Maybe you don't. But whatever that information is that's speaking to you, turn toward it. And begin to notice what you notice, accepting all of yourselves, the things that feel good and the things about yourself you wish you could change. The part of you that feels welcome and the part of you that doesn't feel welcome. Take a full breath into your entire landscape. Open your mouth and let your breath release all the way out. Place one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. Close your mouth and inhale your breath just a tiny bit in through your nose, then a tiny bit more, and then more until you're just about full. Notice if you grip when you're full. Can you soften your shoulders? Can you soften your legs? Open your mouth and let your breath go. Releasing all the way empty. About a third inhale. 2/3. all the way in. Feel the hand under the heart, rising. Exhale it out. 2 more like that. It's a type of Durga Pranayam. Inhale a third. 2/3. All the way full. Front, sides, back of the heart. Open your mouth, exhale it out. Take 1 more round on your own, feeling for any kind of contracting or tightening in any one of these increments. Decide whether that contraction is serving you, if it's helping you, or if it's not. And without really changing that intention, release your hands and switch the cross of your legs. As you inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead. As you exhale, bend your elbows to your sides and start to draw your hands into the side ribs. Pull your elbows back. Notice that your rib cage wants to thrust forward. And take your fingertips in the front of your ribs and gently pull lightly back. In that action, as you inhale, rather than pressing your ribs forward and back, draw your ribs out into your hands. Try to hold a little bit of that space side to side as you exhale. So you can feel your diaphragm, your deep abdominals releasing up towards your heart. And do that 2 more times. Inhale wide. Hold the width. Exhale. You're exaggerating the natural anatomic pattern of breath here. Inhale wide. In order to get this extra release of pressure at your diaphragm and all the organs beneath it, exhale it out. And once you feel that kind of buoyancy and elevation through the belly, release your arms back up. Inhale. Bend your left elbow. Take a hold of your left elbow with your right hand and turn it like a knob towards your face. As you inhale, press that elbow up. And imagine that you could press your elbow away from your ear, but with your right hand, you're continuing to turn the elbow in. As you inhale, lift a little bit higher. Feel that side rib expanding to the left. As you exhale, tip a little to the right. Drive your left hip into the earth. The sitting bone wrapping down around that blanket. Inhale up. And as you exhale, release your arms coming through center and release your hands at your back and take your knuckles over into your right hip crease. Wrap your right elbow back. Drag your back forearm, your left forearm down so that you can inhale and tip your heart up. As you exhale, release your hands. As you inhale, sweep your arms up. Bend your right elbow and take a hold of your right elbow with your left hand, turning it in towards you. Again, there's a little press to the side and a little press forward through the elbow so that you can really use that left hand. Breathe out into the right side rib cage. Take a breath in. Feel for the diaphragm moving up on your exhalation and start to tip over to the left. Breathing into the side waist, plant your right hip a little lower. Right sitting bone heavy. Coming through center, release your arms. Inhale, exhale, interlace your hands at your low back. Take your knuckles over into your left hip. Wrap your left elbow back. Feel for your right forearm actually dragging down your sacrum, down towards your tailbone. Lift your heart up. As you exhale, release that. You may want extra elevation here. So if you want to lift a little higher, you can. You're going to straighten your left leg. And I noticed that with this dome underneath me, it's a little bit more tenuous. So I'm going to move my blanket to sideways. So now I have a proper seat underneath my 2 sitting bones. That's a little more level. Take your block to the outside of your left thigh. Depending on the height of your block, if you have a narrow block like I do, you may want to lift it up to that medium height, or you can keep it on the lowest height. Your left leg will be straight and your right ankle will come just across that thigh bone, right above the kneecap. So you're not pulling your heel up toward your hip crease. That right shin is more or less parallel to the edge of your mat. And with your right pinky toe, you're finding that block. Turn the right toes back toward the knee and actually press the pinky toe side of your foot into your block. As you inhale, lift up your heart, take your left heel forward, drive that right sitting bone down, and then start to tip forward into a bit of a fold. Keep pressing the pinky toe side of the right foot into the block. Take a full breath in. Feel for those side ribs expanding, and on your exhalation, you're actually lifting pressure up and away from the pelvic floor, feeling that natural release of your diaphragm towards your heart. And in that action, maybe you go a little deeper into your fold. So when we practice Ahimsa in this pose, you're not at 100% of your stretch. You're about 80% into your stretch where you're noticing what you're feeling, but you're not pushing into it like a press into a wall. You have plenty of space to breathe, to be a little more dynamic, to press that right outer edge of the foot into your block, and to draw your tailbone back. As you inhale, lift back up, and as you exhale, release your right leg forward. Let your legs shake for a moment, and bring your right leg out. Take your block to the outside of your right thigh, and cross your left ankle just above the kneecap. So you have that pinky toe side of your foot on your block. Take a breath in, lift up through your heart, and as you exhale, start to lean forward. Press down into the pinky toe side of your left foot. Breath in, wide ribs. Breath out, deep belly rising back and up toward the heart. A few times like that, feeling for that quality of spaciousness. You can play and explore your edges with plenty of breath, plenty of acceptance, and a kind of open curiosity. One more breath. Keep pressing into the pinky toe side of that left foot. Bring yourself back up. And as you exhale, release. Have your block next to your mat and come forward onto your hands and knees. Now, if you have sensitive knees, place a blanket underneath your knees for a moment here. Spread your fingers wide. Press into the tops of your feet without moving your head and your chest. So keep your head right in line with your heart. No movement at your chest. Inhale, just your tailbone tips to the sky. Kind of like a half of a cat-cow. Exhale, wrap your tailbone towards your knees. Now notice that your chest wants to drag and follow. Hold it still. In fact, draw your shoulder blades toward your sitting bones. As you inhale, tailbone to the sky. Only the pelvis is moving. Press into your feet. Exhale, round your tailbone towards your knees. Inhale, tailbone toward the sky. Exhale, tailbone toward the knees. Pick up the front of your pelvis so it's lifting off of the front of your thighs. And do that 2 more times. Inhale. Exhale. 1 more time. Inhale. Exhale. Bring your pelvis parallel to the earth. Imagine you have 2 little strings at the frontal hip bones and you're tying that string tight in the front of your pelvis so the frontal hip bones knit a little bit toward each other. That's going to help keep your pelvis very still. And then as you inhale, without moving your pelvis, take your cat-cow into your upper back. Shoulder blades move down. And as you exhale, round only your upper back. Your pelvis is going to want to follow, so be In that movement, paying attention to it, be honest. Inhale, arch just your lower back. Exhale, round just your upper back. Press into the pointer finger knuckle. Inhale, arch your upper back. Exhale, round. Inhale, arch. Shoulder blades dive toward the sacrum. Exhale, shoulder blades widen. Arch your upper back and then feel your whole back moving into the cat-cow. So much more freedom when the whole thing can move together, round everything. Inhale, arch. Exhale, round. One more time. Inhale, arch. And exhale, round. Come back to stillness. Lock out your elbows. And then breathe into your shoulders. Notice if your shoulders feel more or less open. And then bend your elbows. Pick up the thumb and pointer finger and wrap your elbows towards your knees so your elbows are really nice and bent. Keep wrapping your triceps back. Spin thumb and pointer finger to the mat. And slowly start to straighten your elbows without going even close to that place where you were locked a moment ago. So there's still a lot of buoyancy in the elbows. Now notice into your shoulders if there's more or less spaciousness. So even with a little micro bend here, you can feel the strength of your arms. Take a breath in. Tuck your toes under and press your hips back into downward facing dog. We'll take the same experiment with our legs that we just took with the hands. Push your kneecaps back, locking out your knees. And notice what it feels like for your pelvis. And then as you exhale, pick up your heels, bend your knees a lot and send your sitting bones back. Turn your inner thighs a little back and make sure that you cannot see your heels in your line of vision. So your heels are in line with your second toe. And as you inhale, without pushing your kneecaps back, but instead by lifting your sitting bones up, slowly start to move towards straight, never coming close to locking. Melt your heels a little bit toward the earth and breathe into your hips. Notice if there's more space there. That direct somatic experience of your hips. Find another breath. Exhale, press it out. Okay, look forward. As you inhale, take your right foot and step it between your hands. Move your blanket out to the side. And instead, take your block and place your block about halfway down your mat on the left side. So that when you slower take your back knee down, your back knee actually lands on your block. So with the back knee on the block, push your front heel back as though it could drag back, and then with the back knee, traction forward. Breathe like that. There's a little bend in the back knee, it's elevated, and slowly bring your hands to your front leg. Again, with buoyancy at the knees, start to lift your heart up. As you inhale, reach your arms to the sky. Lift through your thumbs. As you exhale, bend your left elbow and turn it like a little knob towards your face. Inhale, lift up a little higher through your left side, and then bow over to the right, flexing laterally. Hug your right thigh toward the midline so the front knee isn't dropping out, it's hugging in. And then lift that elbow into the hand. As you inhale, come back, and as you exhale, interlace your hands at your low back. Take your knuckles over into your right hip, swing your right elbow back, and inhale, drag your forearm towards your tailbone, releasing the skin of the low back downward, Draw your low belly back and up and lift your heart. As you exhale, release your hands to either side of your front foot. Pause. Straighten your back leg. Spin that back inner thigh toward the sky and take your block that was back there forward so that you can place your hand on your block. As you inhale, lift your right arm up and open. Bring your hand behind your head and press your elbow up. Inhale. As you exhale, tap your right elbow to your left. Inhale, elbow lifts up. Shoulder blades draw down. Exhale, elbow taps in. Breathe around your heart space. Inhale to revolve and exhale to pull inward. Pulsing up and pulsing down. Put a little bit of attention in your right hip and draw that right hip crease back. A few more like this. Get light in your bottom hand. You're not bearing your weight into it. Inhale and exhale. Good. Inhale, release your right fingertips to the sky. Exhale, release your hand to the ground and move your block forward. Step into a plank pose. Find a breath in. Unlock your elbows and your knees. And then stretch the top of your head forward. So when you lock out your elbows or your knees, what you're doing is you're impacting, you're encouraging congestion deeper into the spine. In other words, if you soften the joint further out, there's more buoyancy in the joint further in. Elbows soften, the shoulders should soften. Knees soften, the pelvis should soften. Now you can draw your tailbone into your body, engage your glutes a little bit, and pick your heart up between your arms. As you exhale, press back to downward facing dog. Find that principle here. Soften your fingers to soften your wrists. Soften your wrists to soften your elbows. Soften your elbows to soften your shoulders and actively wrap your triceps down. Outer arms wrap toward the earth, thumbs press. Soften your ankles to soften your knees. Soften your knees to soften your hips, and in that spaciousness, draw your tailbone back more. Find another breath. Look forward and step your left foot between your hands. Take your block and bring it down that right corridor so that you can lower your right knee onto your block. Press your front heel back. Press your back toes forward. Slowly bring your hands onto your front thigh. Same thing, rather than dipping all the way into your lunge, lift a little bit, about 80% in your pose, so you're buoyant at the pelvis. Reach your arms up, inhale. Bend your right elbow and take a hold of your elbow with your left hand, turn it in. Lift a little bit more, and this is such a great stretch for the psoas. Keep lifting the elbow and then flex over to the left. Hug your left thigh bone toward your midline. Direct your tailbone into your body. Part of the health of the legs is using the strength at your glutes. So really deepen that tailbone into your body as you turn a little bit deeper here. Inhale, come up. Exhale, release your hands, interlace your hands, and bring your knuckles into your left hip. Swing your left elbow back. With your right forearm, press down, lift up your heart. Breathe it up. One more breath. Low navel back to meet the forearm. Release your hands, pick up your back knee. Feel a spiral of the back thigh toward the ceiling, and then glide that block forward so it's under the right hand. As you inhale, lift your left arm up. You're in a twist. Bring your hand behind your head. Inhale, elbow to the sky. Exhale, elbow wraps down. Inhale, elbow lifts up. Exhale, elbow lowers. Inhale, up and open, pumping the heart. Exhale it down. Put less weight in your bottom hand. Think of your left sitting bone moving towards your right inner thigh, hugging the midline here. So your deep belly wakes up. Full breath. Left arm up, release the hand. As you exhale, hand to the earth, move your block forward and step to the top of your mat. Have your feet about hip width apart. Fold forward, and again, rather than pushing your kneecaps back to straighten your legs, put a bend in your knees and think of lifting your sitting bones toward the sky. Engage your belly a little bit so that you can fold your pelvis over your legs. And you should have your block handy here. We're going to place it between the thighs, just above the knee. You can have your block the narrow way or the medium way, depending on how wide your thigh bones want to be. Bend your knees and come into a chair pose with your hands at your heart. Squeeze your block, drive your thigh bones back. Now for just a moment, take your hands to your leg bones. With your palms right up against the hip crease, push down. So the thigh bones are moving toward the earth. Now engage the front of your pelvis, maybe wiggle for a second. Pull up the frontal hip bones. There's two things we want to do here with our pelvis, depending on our body. We either want to collapse the pelvis forward onto the legs, or we want to tuck the tailbone under. You're doing neither. Your pelvis is looking at your shoulders. Your thigh bones are releasing down, and there's this little crack of light between the upper thigh and the front of the hips. Can you knit those frontal hip bones toward each other and rise them up? Then bring your hands back to your heart, and we'll do 5 pulses. Sitting bones 1, 2, sitting bones back. Imagine your shin bones pressing back. Now drive into your heels, press up. As you exhale, move your block, but keep the memory of it. Step your left foot back about 1 foot distance, so your right foot is just 1 footprint in front. Hands to the heart, sit back. Drive your sitting bones back. Same thing, hug the midline, lift and lower. Now there's almost no weight in your toes. Imagine your shin bones trying to drag to the back of your mat. Pause. Inhale, step your left foot forward, step your right foot back. Toe to heel, on your train track line, sit your hips back. Drag the heels back, little pulses. Shin bones pulse back, lift up. Separate your feet just a little bit wider than your hips. Turn your toes out, hands to your heart. Drag your shin bones back. Now, if you were to look between your feet, your heels would eventually meet into an imaginary perspective point. Imagine that you're trying to pull your shins back into that V point. Hands to your heart, lift and lower. Knit the front of the pelvis in. Keep pulsing your hips back, just a few extra on this one, because you're really trying to feel for that narrowing of the V. Toes are light. 1 more. Come up. Step your feet all the way together, pause. Now, you'll either keep your legs and feet together and do the same thing you just did a moment ago. Please check in with your knees on this one. Or you'll spin your heels out. Keep your toe tips touching, keep your knees touching. Squeeze your knees together and take little pulses. And the pulses might actually be smaller on this one, but there's a squeeze of your knees into one another. If it's not healthy for your knees, just keep your feet together. If you can go a little deeper, go a little deeper. Hold the bottom on this one. Squeeze those inner thighs. Reach your arms up. Hands back to the heart, soften. Drop the heels together, press through your feet and rise. Step to the top of your mat. Inhale, sweep your arms up. As you exhale, fold forward. As you inhale, lift up halfway. And then step your left foot back. Spiral that inner thigh toward the sky. Push into the feet. And then rise up, Crescent Pose. The front shin bone pulls back energetically. Bend your left elbow, turn it like a knob, and bow a little to the right. Bend your back knee like you could kick your back knee into a wall that's just in front of it. And as you inhale, lift back up, release your hands, interlace, and bring your knuckles into your right hip. Press your right elbow back, draw the forearm down, lift up your heart. Lift up your heart, spin the left inner thigh toward the sky. Now hold this, but start to engage your back glutes, your left side glutes. Like you have a paper clip between the bottom glute crease and the thigh bone, squeeze that. Tailbone moves down. As you exhale, come forward. Release your left hand to the earth and bring your right arm to the sky for a twist. Right hand to the ground, plank pose. Unlock elbows, unlock knees, heart forward. Triceps wrap back. Buoyancy so that there's breath. Close the eyes. Head in line with heart. Notice where you contract. Notice where there's spaciousness. Notice where there's kindness. And where there's kindness, there's room to breathe. Down dog, press back. Shift forward to plank pose. You'll lower all the way to your belly. If you're going slowly through chaturanga, see if you can land pubic bone, heart, and chin at the same time. Then point your toes. Press into the tops of your feet. Bring your forehead to the ground. Tip your tailbone into your body. So, again, you're thinking of engaging your lower glutes. As though you have a little paper clip right at the glute crease that you're trying to catch hold of. With that action, you should feel your low back elongate. You should feel the front of your pelvis lift a little bit towards your belly button. And then as you inhale, pick up your head a few inches. As you exhale, take your block to your sacrum. Draw your elbows back. Now, some of you will like this. If you don't love it, just breathe. Bring your hands back to your block and slowly straighten your arms so that you pick your block up. Now, I cheat by placing my thumbs under my block, giving it a little bit of a hoist. So I'm going to try to keep my fingers together. You decide if you need the thumbs as a little assist or if you don't, and press the knuckle of the pointer finger into the block to hold it in place. And then pulse the block up, 1, 2, 3, tailbone down, 4, feet press. Release your block to your sacrum, hands under your forehead, relax. Full breath at your low back. Buoyancy in the knees and the elbows creates buoyancy in the pelvis and the shoulders. Do that one more time. Engage your glutes first, tailbone down. How many years have we heard yoga teachers say, release your glutes, don't engage your glutes? Well, my friends, this has created, in the world of PT, of many friends who now call this phenomenon gluteal amnesia, and it's not a good thing. So let's agree to be rebels here, yoga rebels. Use our glutes, drop your tailbone down and into your body, lift up your heart. Believe it or not, this engaging of your glutes should help your chest rise and your back bend. Then take your hands to your block, thumbs stay out of the assist, hands together, squeeze your block. And by squeeze, I mean hold. Push down into your feet, little pulses, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Move your block to the side and release. Your triceps will feel that. Wiggle your hips just a little bit side to side. Press into the tops of your feet, point your toes straight back. Those of you that have injured knees, the placement of your feet when your legs are straight really matters. So if you notice that your toes kind of want to tuck toward each other here, straighten out that inner ankle. So with your mind's eye, there's no wrinkle at the inner ankle line. From the big toe to the inner knee, you've got a straight line. Push into the tops of your feet, hands back by your ribs. Inhale, cobra pose or upward facing dog. Either one. But what I'd like you to feel for is those outer ankles hugging in. Big toe pointing straight back. Push into the top of the foot and drop your tailbone into your body. Exhale, engage your belly to pick up your hips. Downward facing dog. Slowly, slowly here, walk your feet forward to your hands. When you get to the top of your mat, bend your knees, come into chair pose. Little pulses up and down. Hands to heart, drive through your heels, rise up. Optional to do this with a block, optional not to. I'll do this straight facing you. Your feet will be in line with each other. You're in that turned out position that we did before. Heel matches heel, but the right foot comes onto the block. So toes are in line, heels are in line. There's a turnout. Hands to your heart. Lift and lower. Drag those heels back. So we spent a little extra time on this one the last time. We will again. You're pulling the heels back. You're feeling the asymmetry of this. One more. Lower, hold. Drag those heels toward that imaginary perspective point. Soften your toes. Drive up. Change sides. Block comes under the left foot, toes in line, heels in line. Toes turn out, hands to heart. Sit back. Little pulses. Thinking of not just going down, but pulling your heels back. 2 more. Hold. Hold, hold, toes light. Welcome yourself. Even the parts that don't feel welcome, here they are, breathe into them. All of yourself, not just the parts that are convenient and easy, the whole thing. Press up. Bring your hands to your heart and just feel your aliveness. Close your eyes. Appreciate your heartbeat. Breath in, breath out. Release your hands. Inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead. And as you exhale, fold forward. Let your head go. Lift up halfway, inhale. Step your right foot back. Spin the right inner thigh toward the sky. Push into the front heel and rise up, crescent pose. Here we are. As you exhale, bend your right elbow and turn it like a knob in toward your body. And then press your back knee forward like you're kicking into a wall just in front of you. Tip up and over to the left. So deepen your tailbone into your body. And it's that meeting of the glute down into the thigh bone that maybe, just maybe, if you straighten your leg, you do so, not by spilling your pelvis forward, but by engaging the hamstrings up, engaging the glutes. Inhale, come back through center. Exhale, interlace your hands at your low back. Bring your knuckles into your left hip. Drive that forearm down, down, down. Lift up your heart. Tailbone into the earth. Back leg up to the sky. Full lift at the heart. Left elbow really moves in. As you exhale, come forward, forward. Drop your right hand. Lift your left arm up. Twist. Hello to your body. Bring your left hand down, step to plank pose. Let's test out this vinyasa. As you exhale, pull your palms towards your toes and bend your elbows back. Inhale into your back bend, hug those outer ankles. Draw your tailbone down. Shoulder heads back. Keep your shoulder heads back as you pick up your hips into downward facing dog. Lower your knees to the earth. Pause for just a moment here, and then cross your ankles and come onto your back. What I'd like you to do is take your blanket to the top of your mat, but on the wood in front of your mat. If you're on carpet, you're going to need some kind of something that slides, like a piece of paper, a magazine, a paper plate, something like that. And then you'll place your feet onto the blanket. Block is handy. Hips are toward the front edge of your mat, and then you lie back. This is one of these places where if you have 2 blocks, you can use 2 blocks. 1 block between the thighs, squeezing there. Bring your arms down alongside your body and pick up your hips into a bridge pose. So, you're unstable through your feet. That might be just enough work for your glutes, but we've already talked about the glutes. Now we're going to put that talk into some real practice. With your second block, or with your primary block, support your sacrum. Place the block under your sacrum. Woo! You're in a supported bridge pose. Maybe this is where you want to stay, and I welcome that. You can stay here if you'd like to. Otherwise, keep those thighs tracking the midline. And just 2-inch movement. Push your heels forward so you slide the surface under your feet forward. Pause. Narrow your inner thighs. Pull your heels back. So your blanket returns. Push forward, pull back. Push forward, pull back. Maybe you go more than 2 inches. Maybe you can start to feel your tailbone lifting up towards your knees. Maybe, just maybe, you don't need your block. You can place your block back between your inner thighs, and you start off by just going 1 inch forward and back. 1 inch forward, 1 inch back. Maybe picking it up by going forward and pulling back. If it's too much, go back to the previous iteration with the block under the sacrum. Tip your tailbone up. If it's nearly impossible, this is good information for your body. Good information. Do it one more time. And I'll tell you, just a little secret. Come back into your supported bridge pose with your block under your sacrum. When I started doing this movement, I'd already been practicing yoga since I was 12, so let's just say a long time. And it took me 2 months before I could build the strength in my glutes to be able to do this without a block. I still prefer it with a block. So this is the practice of Ahimsa, right? Where we know we have these options that get harder, more challenging over time, but that doesn't mean that we have to go there. Stay within your realm where, yes, you feel the strength, yes, you're challenged, but you're not challenged to a point of injury or bearing into it or having to protect your body by contracting energetically. So, always stay within that realm of compassion. Pause here. Engage your glutes a little bit to pick up off your block and then lower down. Now we have to counter that strength. So bring your knees up over your hips into a tabletop. Bring your hands between your knees, palms face out, and squeeze your knees with your hands. As you inhale, take your right knee to the right. As you exhale, bring it back. Take your left knee to the left. Did you tip your weight into your hip? Go less far. Pull it back. Squeeze your hands. What you'll notice is that the leg that is not moving, that's the one that's working. The one that's pressing into the hand, that's the one that's working. And then you just go as far with the other one as you go. A few more times like this. Breathing into it. Engaging at your belly. The knees aren't into the belly here. They're in line with the pelvis. Forward. Thigh bones perpendicular to the ground. One more to each side. Come back to center and just hug your knees into your chest. Straighten your left leg. I have to scoot back a little. Straighten your left leg. Take your right leg into half happy baby. Left hip heavy on the mat. Bend your left knee again, right over your hip. Cross your right ankle over your left thigh. Remember when we had the block there? Push the pinky toe away from your belly. Right ankle and left thigh bone pressed together. Keep your shoulders down, tip your legs to the left and pause. Then wrap your right hip back to the earth. Tip to the left. Wrap back. Tip to the left. Wrap back. Tip to the left and hold. Squeeze. Slowly, unit of the legs comes to the left until the right foot touches the ground. With your right hand, press your top knee away from you. You can pulse. You can press and hold. Inhale into that rib cage. As you exhale, feel for that light lift of low belly back and up, taking pressure out of the pelvis. Bring your right arm to the right and look over your right shoulder. Optional to stay here, optional to walk your bottom foot back until your right hand can reach down and catch a hold of that bottom ankle. Both knees squeeze away from you. Pinky toe side of the foot, a little bit alive. Both feet. Drop into a twist, bring the knees together, and then come back up to center. Straighten your right leg, half happy baby, left hand at the left foot, drawing the thigh toward your outer shoulder. Right hip is just as heavy as the left on the ground. Bend your right knee, cross your left ankle over that thigh bone, pressing the foot away. Hands alongside your mat, tip your legs to the right. Arcing the pelvis over and then bring it back. This is kind of a belly work. Tip over to the right. And as you exhale, wrap the hip back to the ground. Tip over. Wrap back. Go over and hold. And then bring the unit of your legs all the way to the ground. Grab a hold of that ankle with your right hand, and with your left hand, press your top knee a little bit away from you. You can do a little press. You can do a dynamic push-release. You cannot press at all and just work your breath. It's amazing how the exhalation here, you can really feel how your breath impacts the somatic experience of your body. Because when you exhale, you get a stretch on your outer left hip. Why is that? How is that? Well, it's because everything is linked. The hip flexor system links up the spine right into where the diaphragm links down. Bend your left elbow, look over your left side. You can stay right here, or you can wiggle walk your bottom foot back. Catch a hold of that bottom ankle with your left hand and just press both knees away from you. Full breath in, full breath out. Drop into a spinal twist, knees together, chest stays right where it is. Come to center, set your feet on the ground, and take a bridge pose. Walk your shoulders underneath you, interlace your hands. Put the pieces together that you've worked. Tip your tailbone up. Press your arm bones down. Narrow your inner thighs a little bit. Soften your toes so that you soften your ankles. Soften your ankles so that your knees ungrip energetically, so that your hips ungrip energetically, so that the pelvis is free, alive, and open. The base of your pelvis being your deepest energetic center. Not just the tailbone itself, but even a couple inches below the tailbone. Feel that aliveness coursing up your spine and into your heart. And as you exhale, release your arms and lower. Hug your knees into your chest. Roll to one side and press up, or rock up to seated. Let your thigh bones be heavy, let your spine be tall. Give yourself a moment just to pause in your spine here. And I know this is highly unusual to come into floor work and then back up. But I'm just running a little bit of an experiment here today because I want to check in with our hips, our knees, our legs, and all that glute work we did. So bear with me. Come onto your hands and knees. Take a breath in, and let's take another downward facing dog. Press back. So stable, a kind of coming home here to down dog. Take a breath in. As you exhale, step your right foot forward. This time, spin your back heel to the ground and lift up into warrior one. Tip your tailbone into your body. Draw your left hip forward. Lift the column of your spine. Bend your left elbow. We're not going to flex to the right. We're just going to press the elbow up so that you can feel that spaciousness through your left side. As you exhale, interlace your hands. Take your knuckles into your right hip crease. And again, we're not going to tip back. We're just going to feel this breath, low belly moving toward the forearm. So you don't need to tip back to lift your heart. You can move the top of your head up to feel that lift. As you exhale, release your hands behind you, lift your arms up, and then draw your prayer into your heart. Walk your right foot in 2 inches, open out to the side, and release into warrior two. You're not cranking your pelvis open. You're letting your left hip be a little forward in space so that the tailbone can move into the body, so that the spine can lift, frontal hip bones wrap, supporting that lift. Go a little deeper. Then bring your forearm to your thigh and send your left arm over your ear. Keep pressing into your back heel. Should feel really good after all that work we've done. Keep your top hip a little forward in space. You're not cranking. And then start to turn your heart up. So it's a kind of a twist for your spine. Parsvakonasana. If you want to bring your hand to a block or to the ground, you can. One more breath. As you exhale, release your hand, step to plank pose, and either press back to down dog or vinyasa. Full breath. And back. Last little set. As you exhale, step your left foot forward, spin your back heel to the earth. Lift up. Inhale here. Take that right hip forward. Tip your tailbone into your body and lift up through your spine. Bend your right elbow, turn it like a knob, and lift that elbow up. Just stretching your right side. Pinky toe side of each foot presses down, heel presses down, toes are soft. Interlace your hands at your low back, bring your knuckles into your left hip, forearm moves down, top of the head lifts up, elbow draws back. Have you lost everything down here? Can you draw your tailbone in? Slowly release your hands, inhale, sweep up. Hands to your heart. Walk your left foot in a few inches. Warrior two. Not pushing the right hip back. But you're already in a little bit of rotation here. This is a kind of a twist. Tailbone drops down, right hip a little forward. Right shoulder back. Shift forward, place your forearm on your thigh, send your right arm over your ear. So with your right hip a little bit rotated toward the earth, you can actually start to feel this open twist. Hand can be on the ground, forearm to thigh, wherever you want it. Start to turn your heart up. Soften your toes, find kindness here. Good, release your hand. Last time through, step back and move it through. Downward facing dog. Press back. 5 breaths. Let this stabilize you back home. Let there be softness around the outer joints, the distal part of the limbs. And then start to feel that returning back, closer in to the spine. As you exhale, lower your knees. Take a child's pose. Feel for breath at your sacrum. Feel how the breath at your sacrum moves through your spine. Slowly bring yourself up. Okay. Take your legs forward. Sit up on anything that you need to sit up on, soles of your feet together. Bow in. Coming into a few symmetrical postures now, before we end. So symmetry in the outer hips, and we'll just take one more symmetrical posture after this one. Come up, take your legs forward, Paschimottanasana, fold. Knit the front of the pelvis in, lengthen your spine forward. And we're going to come into the mother of all postures next. Bring yourself up. Take your blanket or your towel. If it has a ruffly edge, point the ruffly edge toward your body. Bring your blanket, smooth edge, about a third of the way down your mat. Shoulder stand. Salumba Sharbangasana. Now you might need 2 blankets. You might need 3 blankets, depending on whether you're protecting your neck. What you'll do, and if you're new to this setup, please watch for just a moment, but you'll bring yourself back and you won't place your shoulders up against the edge of the blanket. You'll bring your shoulders down so that your head is on the lower part on the mat, but your shoulders are on the blanket. If you're coming in a shoulder stand, head is on the mat, shoulders are on the blanket support. Bring your arms down, bring your legs up. And then pick up. Bring your hands behind your back. Take your feet to the sky. Try not to turn your head side to side. If your shoulders have kind of crept off the blanket support, lower down. Move your body down and then come back up. So you really want the shoulders supported on your blanket. Fully supported. Tailbone tips up. Can you feel how your glutes are helping you here? Elbows hug toward each other. There's all that shoulder work we've done today here. Elbows hug in. Find your breath. Find your gaze. Soften your eyes. One more breath. Slowly, slowly, take your feet overhead. Your feet might touch the ground, they might not. If your feet do touch the ground, maybe you want to interlace your hands and drive your knuckles toward the earth. If your feet are not on the ground, keep your hands supporting your back. Lift your sitting bones up. Draw your knees around your ears, Kardapindasana. Breathe here. Very nourishing posture. Slowly lower yourself down. Take your forearms to the ground. Drop your chin back. And shoulder stand sequence is such a beautiful sequence, but it's a little bit tricky to break down, especially in these online classes. What I did, I know some of you know this, I created a YouTube channel where I have a lot of sequences. And I also have a breakdown of certain postures, and I did about a 20-minute breakdown of shoulder stand, really getting into the details of it. So if it's a posture that confuses you, you can reach out to me and ask me questions, but you can also check that out. As you exhale, drop your chin back down into your chest. Move the blanket out to the side. Come back onto your back, and let's go back into a spinal twist. Drop your knees to the left. Drop your eyes to the right. In a public class, we just don't get all the time that we need for some of these poses. to really explain them. So empower yourself to learn how your body is going to best respond in the asanas. Come through center and drop your knees to the right. Take a twist. Come through center, release your feet. Straighten your legs, finding Shavasana. Turn your palms to face up. Let your body drop. Notice how alive your hands are. Feel that quality of the heart irrigating this earth. Bend your knees, place your feet onto the ground. Take your time rolling to one side and coming up to seated. Let's give ourselves a seated meditation here to close our practice. Let your thigh bones be heavy. Lift through the top of your head. Notice the parts of you that you approve of, the parts that you don't. Welcome them all. Knowing that it is the heart that is speaking to you. In the beautiful things and in the challenging things. Calling you back to your center. Can we respond with compassion? Bring your hands together in front of your heart. Take a breath in and a breath out. And rub your palms together. Bring one hand over your heart and then the other. Bow into all of yourself. Coming up. Hatha Yoga Anushasanam Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Here begins your practice. Namaste.